Out of respect, I won't mention his first name, but it is good to see Brother Bagg with us tonight. I know he's been through a lot, and he looks much better. And I'm glad to see him here, wherever he's run off to. Oh, there he is. Good to have you back. Good to see all of you tonight, and you're sneezing and wheezing and this wintry springtime we're having. So it's good to be with you. We're in Isaiah chapter 5. That's the last one you get. By the way, in the morning, Georgia School of Preaching, a new book will be begun. It's the middle of the quarter, but it is Galatians, Ephesians, and it's Galatians, Ephesians, and Philippians. Just Galatians and Ephesians, okay? So Ephesians will begin in the morning. So if you haven't already started the class, you can come in the morning, and you won't be behind because you'll be starting Ephesians in the morning. So I want to make you aware of that. 10 o'clock in the morning, yes, sir. And Brother Sneed will have some donuts here for you in the morning. And coffee, yeah. We looked at the first 7 verses last week of chapter 5, and God is using an illustration from the plant kingdom. He speaks of himself, and he speaks of his people in terms of the beloved and the beloved's vineyard. And the vineyard, of course, is God's people, the Israel of old. Of course, the beloved, of course, is God, and God planted a vineyard. And the question was raised, what more could I have done for my vineyard? Because he came looking for good fruit, but he found only bitter fruit, unsuitable for human consumption. And so God was asking the question about his people, what more could I have done for them that I have not already done? It's a fascinating question because it's really raising the issue of what does it take to make people or convince people or compel people or motivate people to do the right thing, to be the kind of people that they should be. The people on my detail every day are accustomed to impromptu sermons from me. I never know what may spark a sermon, but we had one today. We were working at the city library in Carrollton, and the oldest individual on my detail, I believe he's 44, 45 years old, kind gentleman. He's the kind of person that you realize does not belong in prison. He's there because he made a bad choice, but he does not have a convict's mentality about him at all. He misses his family. He cries about missing his wife and his children daily. He hopes to get out very soon. He's a good fella. He doesn't really belong there, but he's serving his time, and it's about up for him. But he's a good worker, very respectful, and never gives me a minute's trouble. But today we were working at the library, and I was walking through the parking lot, and I was making my rounds around the house where we were working. And I noticed him walking to the parking lot. I thought, well, what's he doing over there? And there was a pickup truck drove through the parking lot, and I saw the pickup truck stop next to him. I saw him reach into the pickup truck and take something and turn and walk quickly. He didn't see me, see him. So as he made his way back to the house, he was hoping to make it back to the house without me realizing he had been gone. But when I walked up to him, he could tell by the look in my eye that he was busted. And I said, I need you to empty your pockets for me. He said, he was very nervous. He said, yes, sir. So he did. And he had cigarettes. And the thing about this particular inmate, he used to smoke 2 packs a day. He's only been incarcerated for a year, but he said the first 2 or 3 months he was in prison, he had stopped smoking altogether and hasn't smoked since. Doesn't smoke now. Everyone on my detail sneaks and smokes, I say they sneak and smoke because they stink like a filthy, stinking ashtray when they get on the van, but I never see them do it, and they know they're not supposed to do it, and they certainly do not have my blessing to do it. It is against state law for them to do it, so they don't do it. And this gentleman is caught red-handed with cigarettes someone handed to him. Now, I didn't see the whole scenario play out, but I see this kind of thing every day. People through the community driving by, they feel sorry for the guys, and they think, well, I'll give you, sometimes they thought dip, cans of chewing tobacco or whatever. Sometimes it's cigarettes. Sometimes it's heroin. Sometimes it's, who knows what they're throwing out. But anyway, they throw different things out because they feel sorry for them. Sometimes it's a bag of Cheetos. And that was a big story too. But when I asked this guy, give me his pockets, so he did. I took them and broke them up and threw them in the garbage and went about my business, didn't say anything else about it. About 30 minutes later, he called me to the side and he was in tears. He said, I feel horrible about what happened. I said, well, you ought to. And he said, no, I mean, really, he knew I was kidding. He said, no, really, seriously. He said, I respect you. He said, I think the world of you, and I wouldn't do anything to disrespect you. And it kind of broke my heart in a way. I thought, okay, because I couldn't kid with him anymore. I said, all right. I said, it's okay. Just don't let it happen again. And he said, no, really, I shouldn't have done that. Because, I don't even smoke, but I just wanted to do it for the other fellas. And I didn't ask the guy. He just drove by and offered it to me, which I'm pretty certain that's the case. People do it all the time. But he felt really bad about it, but it sparked an idea. And it reminded me of this text in Isaiah 5, and it reminded me of a sermon that I'm working on I haven't yet completed. But I threw it at them today. And it goes something like this. I think all of us know when we do wrong that we've done wrong. And those of us who have any part of a conscience left feel bad when we do wrong. We've done wrong, we feel bad about it. I think that's true, isn't it? And so when someone comes along and says, you're a dirty, low-down scoundrel because you knew better than to do that and you ought not done that, and I think as preachers sometimes, and as parents and as grandparents, that's almost a knee-jerk response. When we see someone doing something we know they know better than to do. You shouldn't have done that. So we want to almost instinctively scold them for what they've done. Now, there's a time to scold people. I think people that need to be scolded are people that are hard-hearted, and they're people that are stiff-necked. There are people who say, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and you just have to try to stop me, Those are people who probably ought to be scolded. But when someone is standing there in tears, telling you, I know what I did was wrong, I'm sorry, beating him up verbally or any otherwise would not have served any purpose whatsoever. But it got me to thinking, because this is a question that people have been asking for centuries. Why do I do wrong things? Why do I mess up? And I'm thinking about this text. God's asking the question from the other side. What more could I have done? And if you think about the question and the point I'm trying to make here tonight, they do come together. Because when you think about how God is reasoning with us, and that's what chapter 1 of Isaiah reminds us God wants to do. He's reasoning with us. He's trying to appeal to our better senses. And so as God reasons with us, he gives us reasons why we should do what is right. Why we should choose the right and reject the wrong. We don't always do that. But when we're lying awake at night in our beds and we're feeling guilty, we probably envision God wanting to send thunderbolts of judgment against us. And we can almost envision God wagging his finger at us. Shame on you, I'm disappointed in you, and I don't care for you anymore. I don't want to call you my son any longer. We can almost hear God saying that to us. But I don't believe God looks at us that way. Now, if we're stubborn and we're hard-hearted and we deny that we've done anything wrong, I haven't done anything wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with what I'm doing. And you find people like that all the time. Trust me, I deal with them every day. I ain't done nothing wrong. I don't know why I'm even in here. Well, what do you do with that attitude and that mindset? You can't really work with it. But I believe at the end of the day, the greatest motivator we have is not the fear and dread of hell, but it is the appeal of the unspeakable love of God for us. I want you to think about that for a minute. We love him because he first loved us. Now, when John says we love him, he means in that context, we do what he says. Because love keeps his commandments. And so it's synonymous with saying when I say I love him, I'm going to do what he says. And the reason I'm going to do what he says is not because I'm afraid of him. I am afraid of him. If you're not, you're not thinking. You're not very smart. But that's not why I do what's right. It's not because I'm afraid of him. I don't want to break his heart. I don't want to hurt him. He cares so deeply for me. He's done so much for me. How can I let him down? I want you to think about that in light of what we're about to read. Because this is not directed at an individual. It's directed at a nation of people. You might even say at this point, 2 nations of people. Northern Israel is still standing momentarily. And southern Judah, of course, he's now primarily appealing to them. But I want you to think about what God's saying to them. What more could I have done for this nation? And we can think about it that way. What more can God do for this nation that he hasn't done yet? To cause us to turn and change our ways. Verse 8. God said I came, verse 7, he actually said I came looking for good fruit, but instead I found nothing that I was looking for. Verse 8, woe to those who join house to house, they add field to field, till there is no place where they may dwell alone in the midst of the land. In my hearing the Lord of hosts said, truly many houses shall be desolate, great and beautiful ones, without inhabitant. For 10 acres of vineyard shall yield 1 bath, and a homer of seed shall yield 1 ephah. Now let's just stop here for a moment. What is he describing? Joining house to house. What is that a description of? What's taking place? Well, they're building cities, yeah, but who's building cities? Who builds anything? People with what? Okay. So you're joining house to house. It means you're growing your materialism, right? This is a materialistic society. And they're indulging in gross materialism. And God's telling them because you're doing this, because you're indulging in gross materialism, it's kind of like the man, you remember, who Jesus said had reaped his harvest. And the barn that he had wasn't big enough to store his crops. So he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear it down and build bigger barns. And there I will bestow all my crops. And there I'll be able to say to my soul, take your ease, because you got much goods laid up for many years. He didn't think about God. He didn't think about his fellow man. He only thought of himself. And I believe that's what Isaiah is here describing, is the same mentality. Here are people that are accumulating more and more and building more and more. And God's telling them, this is going to be the result of your materialism. You're going to plant an acre of land, and rather than yielding what you think it should yield, it's going to yield 10% of what you would normally get from an acre of land. You're going to be in hard times. And so it's kind of like watching the stock market. You know, you say, man, we're at 26,000 right now. Well, you know, the stock market's a fragile thing. And you could wake up tomorrow and you could be down to 10,000 level, and what's happened to your 401 and what's happened to all the other stuff you've invested. I mean, you can lose lots of money literally overnight in the stock market. And I believe that's the kind of thing that God is here warning about through the prophet Isaiah, because you've given yourself to greed. But notice what else he's discussing. Look at verse 11. What are those who rise early in the morning, that they may follow intoxicating drink, who continue until night, till wine inflames them? The harp and the strings, the tambourine and flute and wine are in their feast, but they do not regard the work of the Lord, nor consider the operation of his hands. These are people They are up all night. They're up early in the morning. And what are they doing? They're getting drunk. And they're playing music, loud music, and drinking. They're partying. They're clubbing. This is what he's describing. And so he's describing people that have given themselves to pleasure seeking and wild music. You know, they say you can learn a lot about people by listening to their music. Every now and again, I like to reward my inmates because they work hard. They'll request something to be heard on the radio. I can plug my phone in the radio, play YouTube selections, and they will ask me, could you look up so-and-so artist? Could you look up so-and-so title? And could you look up the clean version? And they know they have to play the clean version because I can't play it. The problem is 9 times out of 10, the clean version is unacceptable. So I'll listen to 2 or 3, boom, boom, and I turn it off. And I'm like, you just don't like our music. Well, it's not music, it's noise, but number one. Number two, it's got so much foul language in it and so much disrespect toward women. They're not female dogs. And the language they're using is just completely unacceptable. So we're not listening to that. Well, I know, but that was a clean version. I mean, I want you to imagine day and night filling your mind with that kind of filth. What would that do to your heart and your mind? How would that benefit you? Now, so you can learn a lot about people by listening to their music. You know, a lot of the young people, the music they listen to is very dark, very, very depressing. And remember the song entitled "The Young and the Hopeless"? One of the part of the chorus, these are the words from the song. If I make it through the day, will tomorrow be the same? Am I just running in place? And if I stumble and fall, shall I get up and carry on? Will it all be the same? Because I'm young and I'm hopeless. I'm lost and unnoticed. I'm going nowhere fast. That's what they say. I'm troublesome. I'm fallen. Now, I want you to hear people singing about this. Say, well, the artist is just reflecting how people feel. Well, maybe they feel that way, but has it ever occurred to these people, these artists, that maybe rather than feeding that negativity, come up with something a little more positive and upbeat? I mean, you can still put a catchy beat to it and make people feel a little better about themselves rather than feeding that negativity and that horrible view of your life. I'm nothing. I'm nobody. Well, who wants to be told that over? But it's a catchy tune. But what are you hearing in that tune? And what are you saying to yourself? Another song is entitled simply "Meant to Live." Another song is entitled "There's Got to Be More to Life." These people don't sound happy at all. Now let's continue reading. Look at verse 18. Woe to those who draw iniquity with cords of vanity, and sin as if with a cart rope, that say, let him, speaking of God, let him make speed and hasten his work, that we may see it. And let the counsel of the Holy One of Israel draw near and come, that we may know it. I want you to, he speaks of these ropes and these cords, and they're dragging something along. I want you to imagine what Isaiah is describing, because this is the actual case. When idolaters would move their idol god from one place to the other, the idol god would be placed on a cart. It had wheels, and it was on a cart, and they would take ropes, and they would literally drag this god behind them. And so they're walking along, and they're dragging their god on this cart that they've made, that they've carved out of stone or wood, because they're real bright, intelligent people, and they're driving this thing along so they can get this new god to the new place they want it to be, so they can worship this god that they made with their hands from the cart that they had to use to. Anyway, Isaiah will eventually start mocking these people. He's going to get to the point where he chides them and mocks them, and they ought to be mocked. It's stupid. You're going to take a tree and carve it and bow down before it and declare it to be your God? That's insanity. And you have to ask yourself, why would someone do that? Why would anyone involve themselves in idolatry? What is idolatry anyway? I mean, you say, well, God in the very beginning, the book of Genesis, made man in his own image, and that's a very powerful thought. But in idolatry, it's the exact opposite of that. We're making God in what? In our image, and after our likeness. We're going to make a God that lets us do what we want to do and behave any way we want to behave. And you see it manifested all the time. Go to the church of your choice. What is that? It's a modern day manifestation of idolatry. Just pick and choose whatever you want to do. Not a matter of what did God say or what's God's will or what honors and glorifies God. Just what do you want? What do you like? What are you into? And where can you go to church where you can do what you want, live any way you want, and get by with all those things, and no one's going to say anything about it. No one's going to question you about it. And so we're creating churches in our own image. It's the same sort of thing. And we see that in ancient Israel and in Judah. So he's describing these people dragging these carts behind them, but then notice what they're saying, these idolaters. They're talking now about God. Let God show his work so that we can see it. You remember a couple of occasions in the ministry of Jesus. In fact, Jesus addressed it. A sinful and an adulterous generation seeks what? Show us a sign and we will believe. When Jesus was literally nailed to the cross, come down if you are the Christ. Show yourself for what you are. I can't think of anything more blasphemous or disrespectful than that. To actually challenge God and defy God in that way. Now, I want you to understand, this is the follow-up, the first part of chapter 5, where God was asking, what more could I have done for these people? And what's their response? Well, we're going to drag our own God behind us, and then we're going to turn and mock the one and true God. You imagine, when you think of it, when you look at all this in one big picture, you can see God literally shedding tears as he looks down on a sinful and a rebellious group of people. And what has he done for them other than love them and express love for them and concern for them? And all they can do is spit in his face. People do it all the time. They do it now. You ever known anyone to disrespect the name of God? Have you? Have you ever heard anybody disrespect the name of God? The name of God, or calling upon God, is not another cuss word in our lexicon of cuss words. And yet, that's what it's come to. People get angry, or they get upset, or they get excited. And what do? And you say, nothing wrong with that. I mean, everybody does it. What you should be asking, how do you suppose God feels about you using his name in such a flippant manner? Now, can you cry out in the name of God in distress? Of course. I would hope that you could. I believe Stephen did, by the way, when he was dying. Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. That's a dying request, and that's not spoken in vain. That's a direct appeal to the Lord. Take care of me. I'm dying. But you know what I mean when people refer to the Lord and they use his name? They're not using his name in a proper way. They're using it as though it's a common, everyday name. The name of Christ is above all other names. And to use it this way is utter disrespect to God. God is not a cuss word. Christianity and the church should not be the brunt of jokes. The Bible should not be ridiculed and mocked. And yet, that's the world we find ourselves in today. And I can hear God again asking the question of this culture. What more could I have done for this group of people that I have not already done? Look at verse 20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Glad we don't have that problem today. I thought, and until recently, it was, I think, the case, that the abortion issue in this country had not been resolved, had not been, quote, settled, but we had kind of reached an equilibrium where we knew the evil people are over here and the rational, sane, decent people are over here. And we just kind of were quietly staying in our own camps. But that's no longer the case. The deranged evil people have come out from under the rocks and are now screaming to the high heavens, if you botch an abortion, the baby comes out alive and screaming, kill it. We actually have people appearing this last week, again, before Congress, Planned Parenthood representative, defending dismembering babies outside of the womb and claiming it was humane to do a baby that way. I was kind of hoping that one of those congressmen would take a chainsaw and come over there and start sawing her into pieces and saying it's humane to be rid of you from the face of the earth. You're so evil, you should not live. And I wonder how humane we would think that is. Oh no, she's a grown congresswoman. Well, that's a baby. That congresswoman is far guilty, I guarantee you, of crimes than that baby will ever be. And yet we don't have any problem arguing openly it's humane to dismember a baby because a woman has chosen, I don't want that child. And therefore, you cannot counter that choice. And if you counter that choice, you are anti-woman, anti-choice. I'm sorry, I'm pro-life. I'm pro-decency. And I am pro-woman. Many women are killed in abortions. And we need to understand what's happening in our culture. I mean, that's just one of many glaring examples. And where if you say what's right and you stand for what's right, you are literally stomped to the ground verbally because you dared take a stand for what's right. We need to stop letting these evil, deranged people set the table and the conversation. We need to stand up and fight back and say, shut up, get out of the way, move somewhere else, or take up arms if we have to and defend those little babies. Somebody needs to. I mean, we are lost as a society if we can no longer defend the most innocent among us. Shame on us. But that's where we are as a society. Yes, you have a Georgia Tech jacket on, but we'll let you speak anyway. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're offended. We'll get over it.
Okay. But I think it's New York and some North
Virginia.
I don't remember which ones and so forth, but we've become so, what's the word? Heathen. But they will let a baby be born and kill it.
Yeah.
Right there, right there in the room.
Well, the Virginia governor said in a publicly aired radio interview that in a botched abortion, when the baby came out and was alive and kicking, they would set the baby over to the side. They would make the baby comfortable while the family would consult the doctor as to what they're going to do with this baby. I mean, what are we talking about? Well, I'm thinking, maybe what the governor meant was we're going to decide which hospital to take that baby to so the baby can get proper care, make sure the baby's going to live. That's not what he meant, but you would hope in a civilized society. I mean, just forget Christianity. Forget that. Forget the Christian worldview. I just want to think about decent human beings. Is there any such thing without Christianity? I don't think so. But just imagine, if we could just be decent human beings. I mean, you don't have to say I'm a church-going, Bible-thumping, clinger or whatever. That's what our politicians call us. And you don't have to be any of those radical Jesus lovers. I mean, just a human being. And a baby crying and screaming. What are you going to do with that baby? What's the doctor going to do with that baby? I don't want to think about it. I've seen too many abortions. I'm still horrified with the videos I've seen. I didn't even want to look at them. I didn't know they were there until I saw them. Oh, I can't believe I'm seeing that. But it's horrible.
Isn't that what the Democrats
Deranged people are saying that. Yes, sir, they are. Evil people are saying that. That's what they're saying, yes. It's what evil says. And so we're calling evil good. And good is being called evil. What more could I have done for this nation and this culture that I have not done for this nation or this culture? What more could God do to bless America that he's not done?
Proverbs does the same thing with a little different wording.
Uh-huh.
He that justifieth the wicked, he that condemneth the just, even they both are an abomination to the Lord.
Okay, so you're condemning, or you're justifying the wicked and condemning the just. That's exactly what, I mean, if you listen to the mainstream media today, that's exactly what they're doing. Good is bad. Bad is good. The more deranged, the more neurotic, the more bizarre, the more insane, the more you're exalted and held up on a platform, and the more normal, quote unquote, or traditional or godly you are, the more you are castigated as some kind of evil monster. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. That's just reality. And that's an unfortunate reality. What more could God do for us? Look at verse 22. Woe to men mighty at drinking wine. Woe to men valiant for mixing intoxicating drink, who justify the wicked for a bribe and take away justice from the righteous man. Our president is working overtime. Not just building a wall, he's doing a lot of things. One of the things he's trying to do is to shine a spotlight on drug abuse in our country. You know, say what you want to about Donald Trump, and you can say a lot about him. He's an interesting man. You've got to say that. We all, regardless of what side you come down, you got to say he's different. He's not like anything we've seen ever. He's different. I say refreshingly so, because he's different. And I'm just glad something different. Even if it was a bad different, it still would be something different. That'd be like, finally, you know, not McDonald's every time. We got Crystal today. But, I mean, he's different. He doesn't drink alcohol. You know what's disturbing? You hear about the establishment, quote unquote, in Washington, the elites, the people that really run Washington, D.C., therefore our nation. They're elitist snobs. And they sip champagne. And they, of course, drink hard liquor. They like to have their good times drinking alcohol. And here comes this billionaire, self-made billionaire. I don't drink alcohol. He's not even a Mormon. I don't drink alcohol. And they don't know what to do with him. They don't like him because he's not one of them. And one of the things that makes him not like them is he doesn't drink alcohol. And he's waging war against those who are abusing drugs and dying from it. People are dying by the thousands through drug overdoses. We have some in this audience tonight who can confirm what I'm telling you. We have people falling out right and left in this county from drug overdoses. Their hearts give out. They can't function anymore. They're dying. We have a movement today urging the legalization of recreational marijuana. Some of the inmates were asked about that. What do you think about that, Officer Gray? You think we ought to legalize it? I mean, it certainly would solve us a lot of problems. We wouldn't all be in prison. Well, okay, I hear what you're trying to say. I get where you're coming from, but you know, to me, it's not even a question of should we make marijuana legal. It's a question of what does marijuana do? What kind of drug is it? Well, you say it's the kind of drug that makes you stupid and kills your brain cells and makes you depressed. You want to kill yourself. I mean, it has side effects, but it kind of makes you hungry. You want to eat stuff that you shouldn't eat. And, I mean, it has all kind of, I don't know, effects on the human body, right? But most people say it's innocent compared to what? But people typically see marijuana as what? What is it? A recreational, but no, there's a term for it. It's a gateway drug. What does that mean, Tessa?
It can lead to doing
okay, when you do drugs for so long and after a while they're like, I've eaten all the, snacks and popcorn and stuff I can eat. I can't stomach anymore. I want to try a different drug. It'll make me so hungry. I have the munchies. Well, what do you do then? You go to the next drug, right? And then when you try that drug and that gets old, you try different. In other words, you just keep on going. I mean, can you imagine just legalizing marijuana? When you legalize it, then what message did that send to people? What message did that send to people? Pretend you're a child growing up in a home. When you open the refrigerator, there's cans and bottles of beer and wine in your refrigerator. Let's just say that's what you see. And that's what you grow up in. And you go to pick up a can of beer one day, you're 10 years old, and your dad said, put that back, you're a kid. Okay, you're a kid, you're not supposed to drink. But in the back of your mind, what are you thinking? When I get grown, what? So you tell somebody, well, you can't smoke marijuana unless you're 16 or 18, or you can't go to, one of these Indian stores, the convenience store, and you can't go in there and purchase your joints, until you're 16, and you have to have an ID. Well, when you're 15 and you want to have a joint, you're saying, well, I can't go in there and buy a joint yet from the Indians, so when am I going to go buy a joint? Well, I'll just wait till next year, because next year it'll be okay for me to do it. So you're thinking already, because it's legal, even if you're not allowed to use it, you're thinking, what? It's okay. Should alcohol be legal? Well, we could argue that, but I know we made it illegal one time and we had a big war on alcohol. Well, we're still waging a war on drugs. And so here we are as a society, the same place we were when Prohibition, all that was going on. So here, we're in the same place. So let's just legalize everything. Okay? But what message did that send to everyone? The vast majority of Americans drink alcohol, recreation. They do. They just drink. That's what they do. And I guarantee you legalize drugs, the vast majority of Americans are going to do what? So, woe to those. What does that mean? What does the word woe mean? Cursed. Cursed are those who follow these intoxicating substances. And why are we doing that? Why are we numbing our brains and our minds? And notice, again, a byproduct of this. We justify the wicked for a bribe, take away justice from the righteous man. I know many of you, we're not talking about just judges and courts here, although that's what Isaiah is talking about, of course, and we all understand how the powerful and the mighty have one tier of justice, and the rest of us have a different tier of justice. If you got a good lawyer, you can just about beat anything, If you don't have a good lawyer, it don't matter, minor crime, you're going to serve the maximum amount of time. We understand how that works. Money talks. It's amazing how much money corrupts. It makes people stupid. And I mean that sincerely. It makes people say stupid and do stupid things. Money does. I know you've all seen it, those of you on Facebook. You've seen all the speeches from Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, arguing about the invasion on our southern border, arguing about the need to have a wall built, arguing about the fact we're going to lose our country. If we got to stop the flow of illegal drugs. We got to stop the flow of all these diseases and other things, and MS-13 gang members. You heard all of that from those individuals who today are doing everything in their power to oppose our president from doing what they have already gone on public record saying that need to be done. Why the change? Well, the media tells you they hate Trump. It's Trump derangement syndrome. Well, there's probably some of that. I don't think they're looking for votes either. Cartels have a lot of money, yeah. There's an old saying, and we've all heard it before, follow the money trail. If something just doesn't add up, if it just doesn't make sense, why would this person be so vehemently opposed to one thing one day, and the next day they're all for it? Who convinced them that we no longer have a problem? By the way, the media now is reporting we have an even bigger problem at the border than we've ever had. That's interesting. You know, you stop to ask why they're doing that? Why the New York Times is now heralding the fact that we have more people now that we're having to house and we're having to contend with and deal with on our border than we ever had before. Why are they saying that? Well, I can tell you why they're saying it. They're telling us why they're saying it. Because Trump wants to build a wall, so we've got this massive influx. So it's Trump's fault. I mean, everything, of course, that happened, that's Trump derangement syndrome. But I'm saying, and that's from the media. But what I'm saying, when you look at what people are saying, it's insane. Why would you not want to lock the doors of your house? Because you don't like other people? Or because you love the people in the house with you? I want to protect my family. I don't want strangers coming in the middle of the night and doing whatever. So why would we put a wall on our southern border when millions literally are coming across illegally every year? Why would I want to build a wall? Well, why do you want to put a door in your house? Why do you want to live in a house? Just live outside. Be a hippie. I mean, just enjoy life, right? And so it's insane. And you say, well, these people are not stupid. Nancy Pelosi is not stupid. The woman didn't get to where she is being dumb. She's not intellectually deficient. There's some other explanation for it. Woe to those who take bribes. And I tell you, these politicians that say we should kill babies, who do you think's funding them? Planned Parenthood has a lot of money. The taxpayers are paying a lot to Planned Parenthood. Yes. And we were betrayed by people who we elected to stop that, weren't we? We were betrayed by those who said we're going to put a stop to that. Why did they betray us? Somebody, well, that too, but somebody paid them off. And so money corrupts. And I can hear God saying, what more could I do? Now look at verse 24, because this is God's concluding thought. Therefore, as the fire devours the stubble and the flame consumes the chaff, so their root will be as rottenness, and their blossom will ascend like dust, because they have rejected the law of the Lord of hosts and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. Therefore the anger of the Lord is aroused against his people. He has stretched out his hand against them and stricken them, and the hills trembled. Their carcasses were as refuse in the midst of the streets. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. He will lift up a banner to the nations from afar. He will whistle to them from the end of the earth. Surely they shall come with speed swiftly. No one will be weary or stumble among them. No one will slumber or sleep, nor will the belt or their loins be loosed, nor the strap of their sandals be broken, whose arrows are sharp and all their bows bent. Their horses' hooves will seem like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. Their roaring will be like a lion. They will roar like young lions. Yes, they will roar and lay hold of the prey. They will carry it away safely, and none will deliver. In that day they will roar against them like the roaring of the sea. And if one looks to the land, behold the darkness and sorrow, and the light is darkened by the clouds. In other words, God's warning them, I'm going to raise up nations, and they're going to come, and they're going to destroy you. Today, someone mentioned the Democrats earlier. I was trying to stay away from mentioning that, but it is in the news. The Democrats were trying to come up with a resolution today denouncing anti-Semitic statements in their party. They could not pull it off. They have too many Democrats in that committee that were bucking Nancy Pelosi and others. I'm wondering where this is going to go. And you say, well, where are these turban-wearing women coming from, and why are they Muslims, that is, being elected to high office, and why are they saying things about killing Muslims? Why are they doing that? Barack Obama infiltrated in those parts of the country tens of thousands of Somali refugees, and they voted for these individuals. And they're making anti-Semitic statements in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party doesn't know what to do with it about it. I mean, what are we going to do? We can't have that. Nancy Pelosi interferes with it. But there's blowback and there's division even in the Democratic Party. I'm saying that not simply to expose what's happening in that party, but I'm saying that to say this. We don't have to worry about foreign invader bringing tanks and smart bombs and droids and nuclear warheads. we're raising up an army right here in our midst by foreign infiltration. And these people are not hiding their agenda whatsoever. And they have no reason to, because we have a media that's deranged. They are deranged leftists. Now, they're really sick people. They're not just bought off. They're hippies, and they're sick. They did too much acid. I'm convinced of that. Something killed their brain cells. And they're all deranged, and they hate this country, and they hate God, and they hate Christianity. And anybody that will say anything to oppose it, they're going to support them. And we're all bad, and they're all good. And that's the world we live in. We need to be aware of what's happening. Then again, what we're reading in Isaiah is God saying, this is how I'm going to bring about justice. This is how I'm going to respond to your lack of gratitude. What more could I have done? I did everything I could do. And this is how you repay that goodness. So now you're going to reap the whirlwind. Any questions or comments about chapter 5? You know, by the way, Isaiah hasn't been called to the ministry yet. He's just getting warmed up. I mean, he's kind of a lengthy preacher. I guess it's one of the longest of the prophets. But he's just getting started here. So we'll see where he gets called next week into the ministry. We're already through with chapter 5. A little faith. Thank y'all. You're kidding. You got some gray hair coming on? Not him. I understand. Number 814 in your songbooks, please. Number 814. I'm glad my grandchildren are not like other grandchildren. Ladies' night out tomorrow at Folks. They used to be Pope Folks, didn't it? But now it's just Folks in Douglasville at 6:30 on Highway 5, right? Isn't that where the Friday night fellowship? Oh yeah, this Friday night, 6 p.m. I got an hour for my bedtime. So we got Friday night, March the 8th, 6 p.m. Please bring snacks, games, any questions, please see Jordan or Lydia Stubblefield. This is going to be cool. So everybody that's cool and hip and part of the in crowd, you need to be here. That's everybody, by the way. You need to be here Friday night. That's a cool time. I'll be here for an hour before I have to go home. So Michelle Morrow is going to be marrying Ronnie Cheek Jr. And that wedding will be March 23rd at 3 p.m. at the home of Tommy and Renee Morrow. If you plan on attending, please RSVP to 770-900-1912. Make sure you identify who you are in the message. Well, who am I calling? Oh, Renee, that's her number? Okay, so tell Renee who you are. Area-wide youth devotional hosted by Bowden this Sunday at 4 o'clock. Dinner will follow at 5, with evening worship at 6. Don't forget, we spring forward before you go to bed Saturday night. So we'll be having a little more daylight, hopefully this time, Lord's willing, next week. Don't forget on the prayer list, Brother Roger Davis. Brian Howard's back with us, and almost looks like the old Brian Howard again. He's getting there. Glad that he's back with us. Betty, did you hear anything from Betty? Yes. She's not feeling well. We need to remember Sister Betty in our prayers. Also, when we dismiss tonight, Brother Tom has agreed to lead us in singing of Happy Birthday for Abby, who's going to be 6 years old. Is it Friday? Wow. Wow, it happens fast, doesn't it? 6 years old. Any other announcements you need to make? And that song again, number 800 what? 814 in your songbooks. In Isaiah chapter 5, we were studying in our adult class the last couple of weeks. God was asking a very thought-provoking question. What more could I have done? He was looking for a particular response, and he wasn't seeing it. And he was asking, what more could I do? And we could ask that question as we're here assembled tonight, preparing to sing a song of invitation in a friendly audience. What more could God do to set the table for your life? To make things easy for you to obey the gospel, to be restored to your first love, to your rightful place here as an active, faithful member? What more could you ask God to do for you that He's not already done? He's given us life. He's given us good food, clothes, family, friends, the church, His Word. He's given His own Son to die in our stead. There's nothing more He can do. We just have to decide, how will I respond to this expression of love? How will you respond? If we can assist you tonight in that response, please make it known while together we stand and as we sing.
Have you been to Jesus?